of nature. A snowflake, a grain of sand, a glacier, a fawn, a fish, a colorful chameleon, the loud clap of thunder, the rhythmic lap of a wave against the shore, the inspiring sight of an eagle in flight, from the tiniest seed of potential to the tall stand of trees stretching into the heavens. Our blessed earth reveals the infinite expression of spirit. Today, I breathe in the blessings of this wondrous planet. A deep appreciation of all life surges from within as I consider that God is within me and God is everywhere present. The love and life of God are abundantly on display, and I am grateful.
Thank you.
This isn't working. This isn't working.
Is it?
No.
I didn't want to record.
Yeah, it is. It has a red dot. That means recording.
Thank you for reading.
She's just joking with you. She's teasing you.
Oh yeah, she's a teaser.
Oh man, so don't do that.
Take these thoughts into prayer, a meditation with the Lord's Prayer, and it's in the folder.
Oh yeah. No, he's doing it the first time.
Volunteer to read the Fillmore reading. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Mind manifests through faculties. If mind is to comprehend increasingly, there must be an increase of these avenues. That man has latent possibilities goes without argument. That there is a limit to the ability of the mind is unthinkable. What a man imagines he can do, that he can do. The doing is a question of adopting the right way. To allow the imagination to drift in daydreams never brings anything to pass. Ideas must be worked into living, breathing, thinking things. Man can compress his vagrant ideas into visibility as the chemist liquefies and makes visible the invisible atmosphere. But to do this, he must, like the chemist, have the necessary machinery. Whatever we mirror in our minds becomes a living, active thing. And through it, we are connected with the world about us. Through the work of the imagining faculty, every thought makes a form, and multitudes of thoughts make multitudes of forms. Deep. Now, okay, as a teacher, I want you to all repeat that back.
Thank you, Margie. Why don't you just continue? Charles Fillmore also wrote, "Imagination gives the man the ability to project himself through time and space and rise above all limitations." And of course, imagination is one of the 12 powers that Charles Fillmore writes about.
Charles Fillmore.
Oh, Charles Fillmore is the founder of Unity. Charles Fillmore, he actually in the late 1800s, he was born late 1800s, early 1900s. He went to a lot of like New Thought speakers, went to a lot of science of the mind, different things, a lot of different religions. He studied all different religions, took the things that were common to all, and put them kind of all into unity. And we're called the practical Christianity. And it's more how to live spiritually in today's world. I always explain it as that. How to live spiritually in today's world. I think that's a good definition, right? Yeah. So I'm going to have whoever can and wants to participate in this little activity I'm going to do. It's going to be, you're going to stand and turn. So if you can stand and turn, you can participate if you would like. So I'd like everyone that wants to participate, stand up and just give yourself a little room that you don't hit anybody, but you're going to put your hand out and turn. Okay, so give yourself a little room.
I know I'm doing it. Whoa, holy cow.
Okay, I want you to put your hand front, okay? And I want you to turn to the, let's turn to the right, or turn to the left. Turn to the left. Turn to the left. Turn to the right, to the left. Turn to the left as far as you can, okay? Without turning your feet. Without turning your feet.
Without turning my
Okay?
feet?
Without turning your feet. And then see where you stop. See where you stop. Okay? Everybody see. You can't bend your arm. So bend your arm, just keep going straight and see where you're pointing, okay? Okay, all right, now come back.
This
Now,
is supposed to be your right hand though?
Your right arm, and then,
Okay, I'm left-handed, I use my left hand.
So, now, I want everybody to close your eyes,
Yeah.
and we're gonna imagine doing that. So I want you to close your eyes, and don't do this, but just imagine. Raising your arm, pointing your finger, and turning the same way you did. But this way, this time you feel so limber. You turn way past the point that you turned. You see what you turn, you see that point, you turn further and further and further. Now you come back, and you put your arm down. You want to do it again? I want you to raise your arm.
Is this real?
No, this is imaginary. Imaginary, raise your arm. Point your imaginary, raise your arm. Point your finger. Turn. And this time you see yourself turning past the first point, past the second point. Feels almost that you're going to turn all the way around. You're amazed at how far you can turn. So you come back, put your arm down, and now I want you to open your eyes. And I want you to put your arm up, and I want you to do the same thing that you did, to the left, and turn. See where you turn. How many people could turn further? Awesome, okay, you can have a seat. So, you could turn further the second time. Why is that?
You saw it.
You saw it. You saw it happen. You saw it happen. So you conditioned your mind really through your imagination that you could do that. You drop that limitation. And that was just with 2 times. I mean, if you do it with more, you know, you kind of get further and stuff. But it's kind of amazing that just that little bit has made that difference in our bodies. You know, Charles Fillmore talked about imagination, and it's incredible what they're finding out about imagination. And we think about imagination as only visualization, but imagination is a whole bunch of different things. It involves a whole bunch of different things. Really, when it's found that when we think, our thoughts are really in images. We think in images. So really, all our thinking is imagination. Because as something happens, we look at it, we think a thought about it, right? But then, what do we do with that thought that we think about that situation?
It's not possible.
It happened to you.
What's that?
It happened to you.
And then you take that and you go take that, well, whatever. How does this affect me? What am I supposed to do? When am I going to happen, right? So really, we think in images, we think, we use our thoughts, and we're constantly doing that. There's nothing, you know, our thoughts are constantly going. We're constantly imaging. We're constantly using our imagination. So the question is, how are we using our imagination? What kind of thoughts, how are we using our imagination? There's a quote that says, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And that's such a powerful statement. Whatever can conceive and achieve, or conceive and believe, it can achieve. And I was a Trekkie back in the 60s. I watched Star Trek. And I was amazed at the stuff that they did. You know, it was kind of cool with the communicators and, you know, everything. And, you know, when I picked up my son several years back, when I picked up my son from high school and all the kids were coming out and, you know, using their cell phones, it was like, wow, you know what, that's almost like a communicator on Star Trek. So what was science fiction then is now reality. Right? And think about all those things on Star Trek that we thought was science fiction at that time, and now they have become reality. So you think about all that other stuff that isn't reality yet. Is it science fiction, or is it just reality that has not yet been realized? Because a mind could conceive it. And think of that statement, whatever the mind can conceive. So if we can think of it, it's possible. And you know, I know I've heard that already. Our thoughts, our ideas, our imagining, our imagery comes because it is possible, because it already happened. You know, so it's already there. We just have to bring it to reality.
Their slogan is, if you can dream it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And sports coaches for years have known that, because they have, you know, like famous skiers who have done these miraculous jumps and things like that and beaten times that they never thought possible.
Yeah.
They imagined it, and they even did studies where they put things on their muscles, and even when they were imagining it, the muscles were in the biochemistry, it was doing it.
Yep.
It was happening to their bodies.
Yep, and that's part of my message there. So thank you, because, and it's true. They use it's so powerful. They use it in sports. They did one, and they have done studies. Just like she said, they actually attach muscle sensors to muscles, and just imagining doing everything. The muscles tense, everything fires exactly as if you were doing it. So, what does that do for the actual, you know, when they actually do it? They actually have done studies as far as, there was a study done in the University of Chicago with basketball free throws. And they had 3 groups. And first they tested the proficiency of everyone so that they knew the starting point of each person. They had 3 groups. The first group, they said, just forget about this test, go home, do nothing, come back in a month. The second group, they said, go to the gym 1 hour a day and practice free throws. And they made sure that they did that. The third group, they said, visualize 1 hour a day making free throws. Don't actually practice, just visualize it. Use your imagination. When they came back a month later, group 1, no improvement. I guess sitting around doesn't do anything. No improvement. Second group, 24% improvement. So practice really helps. Third group, 23% improvement. Only 1% less improvement just visualizing as opposed to actually practicing it. It's amazing how powerful our imagination and our thoughts are, our visualizations, our imagination. So if you think about, we do that all day, okay, all day, every day, and keep that in mind as we're talking here. We're doing that constantly, okay? Thomas Troward, he's an English New Thought author and Christian mystic. He wrote, "Having seen and felt the end, you have willed the means to the realization of the end." Meaning, what our thoughts are, if we think from the end in, we start beginning the actions to achieve that. We don't have to know how it's going to happen. All we have to know is the end product. And the end product, of course, is we want to be happy, right? Most of the time we want to be happy. Most of the things that we want to bring us happiness. But if you think from the end, you've already started that. So, one big thing when I started on my spiritual path was that I realized that I had a choice of what I thought. Because and it sounds silly, but I never realized that I had that choice. I never ever thought about what was going on in my head. Because something would happen and I would react. And I would go from there. I would make up stories. I would, my actions would be that, and I'd hold on to it and stuff. And it was amazing, the change in my life. Just that one awareness of having the ability to change what I'm thinking, to stop and change what I'm thinking. Eric Butterworth from Spiritual Economics, he talks about, he says, when something happens and, like we get upset or whatever, and we say, I'm going to set that right. He said, maybe we ought to say, I'm going to see that right. Because it's a matter of using, when we look at something and perceive something, it's always our imagination of how we basically are perceiving it. If we look at something, see it in images, it's how we are perceiving, how we're seeing it. So it's a matter of seeing it right. And instead of just saying that what we see is reality, it's a matter of how we see it. A successful industrialist said, "It's just as easy to see yourself successful as it is to see yourself a failure, and it's a lot more fun." So, and I remember Sharon Markford when she was teaching here. She said, we make up stories all the time in our head. And that's how kind of we speak. We think in images, we think good, bad, we're kind of making up stories. So how comes it's easier to make up stories that scare us instead of stories that make us feel good? Because many times when something happens, we don't go to the best thing that could have happened. We go to the worst thing that could have happened. Or, make it into the worst thing. And it's a discipline. And it's everything that Charles Fillmore teaches is, it's a discipline. It's learning to change our thinking, or learning how to think differently, learning how to see things rightly. There's a story in here, and I'm going to read two things here from the Spiritual Economics book. A little girl was looking out the front window of her home, sobbing convulsively as she watched her brothers drag the lifeless body of her dog, which had just been struck down in the street by a car, into the yard for burial. The Quaker father stood lovingly by, his arms comforting around her. In time, he led her to another window, looking out into the garden, where the little girl was soon squealing with delight as she noticed new blossoms on a small bush she had previously helped to plant. Patting her tenderly, the Quaker father said, "You see, dear, they are looking out the wrong window." I think that little story is powerful as far as looking out the wrong window. We have a choice of which window of life we want to look out of. Do we want to keep looking at things, that make us feel bad or whatever? And it's a matter of how long do we want to do that? How long do we want to hold on to things? How long do we want to hold those images on our head? And I think about when I think about Star Trek too, there was one show that really, I loved this show, it was called The Cage. And I think it was one of the first ones. I don't know, was anybody into Star Trek at all here? No, nobody was into that. Now that I Harry Potter. That's why Harry Potter. I didn't see any of the Harry Potters. But it was, they had these people, they had the Star Trek people in a cage on this planet, in a cage. And the people on the planet were like illusionists. Like they made whatever they imagined, they made that. They made that scenario for them. And it was two people that were injured very badly. And when they were on the planet, these people made them see each other and see themselves the way they wanted to be. And it was incredible. You know, the one guy couldn't, you know, was just kind of ahead in a wheelchair, and the other lady was kind of crippled like this in real life. But they saw each other as young and vibrant and vital, and that's what they were. And what was really neat at the end of the show, of course, when they left, the people on the planet said, Captain Pike has his illusion, and you have your reality. May you find your way as pleasant. Meaning, it was more pleasant for the person being in his illusion than us being in our reality. However, then that makes you think, what is illusion and what is reality? Because everything is from our imagination. We see things through our filters. So, you know, you start thinking about, you know, we see each other how we perceive each other through our imagination. And we can choose to see everybody rightly through the eyes of God. It's a matter of how we use our images, how we use our imagination. There's once a lot of people say, you know, seeing is believing. You know, I'll see it when I believe it, or I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. However, the real thing is, it's backwards. You know, everything in life is backwards. We have to stop and think. Everything in life is backwards. It's all what we did not learn. You know, we have to believe it before we see it. And first we have to see it in our mind, and then we can see it out there. So Blake, when you and your family were here, how did you start doing the garden?
Well, first thing you have to do, first thing to do is weed everything, just take it apart and build it back up.
Okay. And did you have a picture in your mind about what it would be?
I've done it so many times before.
It's just automatic to you.
Yeah, it was pretty easy actually.
It's pretty easy. When we did downstairs, how did you help pick the color and stuff like that? But how do you paint a picture? How do you start something? Envision it. You envision it, what you want it to look like. And then you kind of just, you know, you start doing what you need to do that. But, you know, that's with life. Everything kind of starts with an image, with a vision. And we don't realize how powerful our visions are and our images. Too many times, think about kids. They have this great imagination. And what do we do too many times as parents?
We tell them to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I remember my kids. I'm going to be this when I grow up. I'm going to be that when I grow up. Well, you better think of something that's going to make you money, or you know, something like that. Instead of saying, you know what, you can be whatever you want to be, and encourage. You know, imagination is an awesome thing. You know, and I'm amazed. Sometimes don't you stop and think, like if you look at something, you say, whoever thought about this? Whoever thought about making this? You know, like cell phones and computers, and when you think about the awesomeness of that, and you think, how did anybody ever think this up? It started first with somebody having a vision, and then having the belief that they could do it. And that's what's powerful. Go ahead, Marie.
Well, then I think, why did I have the idea?
Why did they have the idea? Did you ever have an idea and then somebody came out with it and made money on it?
Yes.
And then you said, oh, I should have done that. Yeah, and you know, and there is, and we're all connected. We're all connected. So, and I know there's been things that happen like on one side of the planet, another country on the other side of the planet at the same time, and it was like, who had it first? But really, you know, if you think about it, we're all connected in mind. That idea is out there for anybody to pull in. So, you know, it's a matter of everybody. Plus, when you have the idea, what happens? That idea gets sent out also, kind of for anybody else to pull in. So if you had the idea and you sent it out and didn't do it, somebody's going to do it.
I gotta tell you, probably about doing the same thing at the same time. Here about a week ago, I'm trying to text Krista, right? and it wouldn't go through, it wouldn't go through. I kept trying and trying. I told Gene, I said, I'm gonna send this phone to Lebanon. I'm gonna throw it. And I let it rest about a minute, and I said, no, Chris can text me. Here we were texting each other at the same time.
And how many times is that? And talk about the power of imagination. And a girl at work and I were talking about this. And that right there, there's so much that you can talk about the power of imagination. But that too is, you have an image of somebody, then you say, boy, I haven't seen that person for a while. And then all of a sudden they call, you see them, something like that. The power of imagination. It's an image. It's sent out there and it comes back.
Yesterday, I was thinking about Margie and, getting a new car and all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking about it, and Margie called me, like as I was thinking about it, and she said, you were reading my mind.
Talk about Margie and her, yes,
I have been, since last Thanksgiving, the driver of a 2007 Silver Dodge Caravan. And I was very grateful for it. And we get our vans from family members that they have a business of helping the mentally challenged. They provide housing for them and they take them for all their business stuff and everything, appointments. And then after 3 years, they're done leasing the van and they're allowed to sell it. So we got this van at a phenomenally good price and with like 23,000 miles on it, all right? And I'm driving this van and everything's okay with it, but sometime after Christmas, something said to me, I don't know, and there's just something not right about this van. I don't think it's mechanically wrong or anything like that. And we have been told enough times, so I was starting to really say, in 2012, the vibration is especially here. It has been here, but it's very strong right now, that you need to envision what you want. My husband and I are on, I don't want to call it a limited income. We have to watch very carefully what we do with our pennies. And I kept seeing myself, and then after this thing with the van, like it's not quite right, I was putting tons of money into this van to pay for the gas. And I mean, I'd go get $100 out of the bank, and all this money, like $75, would go into the gas tank. So after I'm thinking that this van isn't quite right, the next thing that always came into my head was me driving a red vehicle. And it was red every time. And was it because I had a red van? Not especially. Was I having fun driving this vehicle? Yes, but I didn't allow myself to think that it was anything other than just something monetarily that was going to be okay. But I've always wanted to have like a Chrysler 300. That's what I wanted. And it's like, how would I dare envision anything that I want? We're in a really situation right now. Last Sunday, after we left church here, Debbie and I were in a very serious accident with my van. It was my fault. I am so grateful that neither one of us were hurt. I called Jan and Bob if they could take us home from the hospital because we wanted to make sure that Debbie was okay. She had a bump in her head. And Jan and Bob were still in the board meeting at that point because we'd had the annual meeting, probably going down for some coffee or whatever. They were still in the annual meeting. Jan and Bob and I reciprocate on a lot of things. At the board meeting, they stopped immediately and they started a prayer for Debbie and myself. I went with her to the hospital, the policeman took care of the van and stuff like that. I knew, so we got a rental car. The first 2 days, I didn't want to live anymore. I figured, how could I do this? How could I fall asleep at the wheel? I always take notice. But at this point, I dozed off. And Debbie happened to be asleep too. And the next thing I knew, I was off the road in a bed of red cedar mulch. and boulders, little boulders. And I was going towards this huge concrete and stone pit. But we walked away from it. So first thing I had to realize was I had to get out of that mindset. That besides what was going on with my husband's health, our finances, we were going to be okay. The claims adjuster very, very quickly deemed that that van was totaled. When I saw it, not only was it smashed in the front by the pillars, it was completely ruined underneath by the boulders. And we were headed for going into a gated community. When I woke up, when I woke up, I didn't even know what it was. So anyway, Friday, we knew that we were going to have the money. I went to Savage Dodge. I said, what do you have in the price range of what I have? The guy went out, and the first thing we looked at was a red Dodge Magnum station wagon, 57,000 miles, not much more than what I was going to get for the insurance. We were the first ones to look at it. They didn't even have the keys on the pegs. Wait till you see the car that I plugged in next. Wait till you see it.
Thank you, Margie. That was
The future came to me before I needed it.
and you know what I said, well, you know what, you had that vision and stuff like that, you weren't willing to let go of the van. I said, you know what, you should say to God, well, thanks a lot, but you could have given it to me a different way.
Yeah.
I didn't need that.
But my future was coming to me before I needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how else would I have known that I, you know, and I was saying, when I get the right car, it's going to be ready.
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. And go ahead, Joe.
I was thinking of that Eagles song where it says, we live our life in chains, never really knowing we have the key.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, yeah.
That song reminds me that we hold ourselves in our own prison or cage from our limiting beliefs and our,
Yeah.
And you know, and this,
we must have the key.
and this, go back to the Star Trek show again. Well, I'll have to get that next sometime, but, you know, they were in this cage, and they had the phasers, you know, and they would, like, burn a hole in the cage, and it didn't do anything. But see, the illusion is, the hole was there, it's just they didn't see it. And isn't that so, you know, so really symbolic? Because we have the hole in our cage. We just don't see it. You know, we have our limitations.
Yeah.
And we have that way out. It's just we don't see it. You know, because we're into our illusion of our limitations. And that's what we're living, instead of using our imagination. Realizing that whatever in our mind, if we can conceive it and believe it, we can achieve it.
I had, months before my husband passed away, I had a dream that he left me alone.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you had that vision that was going to happen.
yeah. I didn't know that it would happen.
Right.
I just had a dream. I was somewhere and I was all by myself.
Yeah.
And then I said, why did you let me alone?
Wow.
I told him the next day. And he said, I'd never do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible what our mind does, what our mind knows. You know, when we're connected to the divine mind, what we know. Go ahead, Lucas.
It's just about Star Trek and Star Wars. Are they familiar or like the same? Or what? Like Star Trek and Star Wars, are they like the same?
70s and 80s.
But it
And then we had the next generation in the 90s.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different. It's a little bit. I don't know. I never really was into
Like-
Star Wars that much, so I don't really know.
Because I am.
Are you? I don't know. I'll have to check that out and see if it was the same.
Nancy,
What?
but still, with Star Wars, there's the principle of good and evil. And,
Okay.
you know, I mean, in that way, they're very much the same, of following the force of good and evil.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, it was more of
I'm
a.
sorry.
But they're the same.
The only thing I got out of Star Trek was the dramatic pause. Sorry. William Shatner's radical.
Yeah.
The sword, just like when David or whatever, I mean, he used the sword for good,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know, I didn't do that. I don't know.
Would anybody say that, the
Yeah.
sword that he used was for good?
And do you know, when we talk about imagination, and we're getting out of time here, but when we talk about imagination, it comes into self-fulfilling prophecy. Our imagination, our self-fulfilling prophecy, Pygmalion effect. Our imagination causes the Pygmalion effect, what we think about others. And I can talk about that in another talk. But all of those things go along with imagination. So right now, today, I would like you to start thinking about, well, how are we using our imagination? If we're constantly thinking thoughts, and we're thinking those thoughts in images, what are those kind of images going through our head? Because those images are kind of, predictors of where we're headed. Are we headed into something negative, or are we headed into something positive? And to know that we have the ability to stop right there and change. And think about these studies that have been done. Think about, the power of visualization. When we want to do something, Lucas, when you go for a test, take time before you do that and, close your eyes and visualize yourself knowing all the answers, getting that A, and, that kind of thing. Because it really does. It helps that happen. We can visualize the future. I love this one quote by James Allen. He says, "Dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, so shall you become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your ideal is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil." So it's a matter of daring ourselves to be strong, daring ourselves to be capable, to be successful, to see ourselves in a different way, to see our world in a different way, to see other people in a different way. It's all the way we use our imagination, because it is incredibly powerful. We have to understand that. So I'd like to take these thoughts into a meditation. And before we do that, actually, let me just read this one other story out of Spiritual Economics that I want to read. And it's in a classic work, Wind, Sand, and Stars. The story is told of a pilot who was downed in the rugged, snow-blocked region of the Andes. He trudged through the snow for days, only to find his way hopelessly blocked by a yawning crevice in the ice. He quickly concluded that he had three choices: give up and die of exposure, make an attempt to cross the fissure, knowing full well that it was impossible to do so, or convince himself that he could jump across and make an attempt out of that conviction. When consideration in this kind of logic, the choice was clear, so he backed away, took a few minutes, imagined himself floating over the crevice, jumping as far as he could. He closed his moment for a minute of inner communication, then loudly said, I can. He ran and jumped and barely reached safety on the other side. Trudging off down the mountains, he was finally found and saved. And Eric Butterworth writes, now faith was no magic bridge. There was no miracle of God picking him up and depositing him on the other side. What the man did was accomplish this with his own concentrated mind, his imagination, and by special effort by his own muscles. That was almost exactly what we did. We saw ourselves going further than what we could, and we accomplished it. That man saw himself jumping further than he ever thought he could, and he accomplished it. And that's what they do in sports. Maybe we should take a lesson from all of these people and start thinking about what we feel are limitations, and thinking about ourselves going beyond that. And that's how we're going to do that. So I'd like to go into meditation and think that right now, start thinking those thoughts. Get into a state of meditation. Relax. Feel the chair support your body. Feel the floor supporting your feet. Just notice the energy of this room. Just take in the inspiration of the stories that you've heard. Margie's red car. Think about a time when you called someone or thought about someone and they called and you saw them, remember how powerful your imagination is. Take into consideration all the words that were said by Charles Fillmore. Imagination gives the man the ability to project himself through time and space and rise above all limitations. I'd like you to bring into mind something now that you're struggling with, that you feel limited, that you feel bound. Maybe it is, as Margie said, she doesn't want to say what she wanted to say as far as it didn't come. But think about that. Think about a job, a position, a talent that you'd like to do, something that you would like to start. But you feel limited, you feel fearful, you feel scared. I'd like you to take this time and imagine what it would be like to have already achieved what you would love to do. Along with imagination is not just the thoughts in our mind, but the sounds that we hear, the smells that we smell, the feelings that we feel, the touches that we feel. Take this time and think about what people would say, how people would react. People being happy around you. Maybe people congratulating you, giving you hugs, saying, I knew you could do it. Imagine what it feels like to be the best that you can be. To use all those talents that God has given you. To conceive something in your mind that would help humankind and to bring it to achievement for whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. Feel that feeling of overcoming. Perhaps it's a habit that you want to overcome. See yourself clean and free, and if it's a health issue, see yourself walking pain-free. Visualize well-being. Anything that your mind can conceive. Truly hold that picture in your mind. Hold it from the end. And say, thank you, God. Thank you for giving me this image. For as you have given me this image, I know that you will give me the means to achieve it. As you go on with that feeling, with that belief, know that it is already done. And we give thanks. So I invite you to come back with that feeling of that image already achieved. Come back into this room with the feeling of accomplishment, the feeling of happiness, the feeling of victory, the feeling of gratitude. And so it is. Remember my daughter was on a soccer team, a premier soccer team. And they had a coach from he was British. And anyways, before the game, everybody, all the girls would be out on the field. I mean, the other team would be out in the field kicking the goals and running and stuff like that. And he had the girls all laying, and he would do a visualization with them. And, you know, the other teams would walk past and laugh at them and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, when her team got on the field, it was like the other team wasn't even there. You know? But, I mean, yeah, because they were incredible. And this guy really knew, you know, the power of visualization, you know, and imagery. It really, really is incredible. So, you know, we don't realize the power and the forces that we have. Okay, it's time to, our music is Through My Eyes, and that's the white, number 19. 19.
19, in the white, in the blue book.
The blue book is the white page.
The white page.
Through my eyes, I see a world of inner beauty, where a kind word or a thought's not compromised, and there's joy and a place for my acceptance in a world of inner beauty through my eyes. And it may be the dark night of the soul, circumstances beyond my control. Through my eyes, I see a world of understanding, where friends are never far away to find, and I rest in a place of solemn comfort, in a world of understanding through my eyes. It may be the dark night of the soul, with circumstances beyond my control. Through my eyes, I see a world without oppression, with a unity and solitary mind. And I choose to love even those who wish to hurt me, even though it's very difficult at times. For the world's something greater through my eyes.
That's a powerful song. And we have the ability to make that world greater through our eyes and through our imagination. Okay, take our offerings in our hands. And we'll say our blessing. This offering is God our Master, as my unlimited source of supply. Through me, it blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Healthy and happy to be alive. I imagine myself doing the seemingly impossible with grace and grace. I visualize the well-being of my heart, nerves, digestive system, and all other parts of my body and temple. I seek harmony, balance, and happiness in all my relationships. I I see my future and the future of my world bright and in light. I commit to use my imagination